Hello. I hope all of you are having a wonderful week this week. It's been beautiful outside today. Recording this on Wednesday, March 10th. Uh, Had the wonderful opportunity to get up a little before work and hike a little by the River near where I live. But I hope all of you are having a wonderful week. And before I get too far into the midweek reflection, I want to thank all of you who helped me out this past Saturday in putting together or joining in Saturday's Lenten prayer retreat. It was a nice, socially distanced event. All of us had masks, but we were able to see each other. And those of you who gathered and joined were able to join in a time of walking meditation and also centering prayer as we walked around the church campus. And it was a way of reconnecting with what matters most, which is really what Lent is about. One of the things that mattered most, of course, was just being connected with each other, which we've not had a lot of this year. But I think all of us also appreciated taking time to connect with God. For those of you who've been at the church since I started pastoring here around 2 years ago, early on in pastoring here at Life's Journey, I mentioned hoping we could start a tradition of a spring Lenten retreat like this one, with another fall retreat each year focused on our vision for the year each year as a church. Now, when I mentioned that, I had no idea that our first spring Lenten retreat, just before I started my second year here, would um, or also be our first socially distanced gathering as we begin our process of returning to regular worship again as a global pandemic slowly starts to abate. So I hope not only that this was a high point for this spring, but even after we are beyond this pandemic, we can continue to plan events in Lent like this one, to pause for a little retreat, even if it's just a few hours together as a church, as we approach Easter to renew ourselves spiritually. Now, I shared with the folks who made it to our retreat a metaphor for our spiritual lives that was provided by one of my favorite authors, the late Henry Nouwen. Nouwen explains prayer by talking about the sort of large wagon wheels that were used um, in his home country for decoration. Ones with wide rims and strong wooden spokes and big hubs in the center. These wheels help me, he writes, to understand the importance of a life lived from the center. When I move along the rim, I can reach one spoke after the other. But when I stay at the hub, I am in touch with all the spokes at once. To pray is to move to the center of all life and all love. The closer I come to the hub of life, the closer I come to all that receives its strength and energy from there. My tendency, he writes, is to be distracted, so distracted by the diversity of the many spokes of life that I'm busy but not truly life giving, all over the place but not focused. By directing my attention to the heart of life, I am connected with its rich variety while remaining centered. What does the hub represent? I think of it as my own heart, the heart of God and the heart of the world. When I pray, I enter into the depth of my own heart and find there the heart of God who speaks to me of love. And I recognize right there the place where all of my sisters and brothers are in communion with one another. The great paradox, he writes, of the spiritual life is indeed that the most personal is the most universal. that the most intimate is the most communal, and that the most contemplative is the most active. The wagon wheel shows that the hub is the center of all energy and movement, even when it seems not to be moving at all. In God, all action and all rest are one. So too with prayer. Now, last week in our midweek devotional, we looked at the beginning of James 3. And I think Nowen's words are a good context to look at the end of James 3 rather than the beginning. James 3 ends in this way, verse 13. Are any of you wise and understanding? Show that your actions are good, with a humble lifestyle that comes from wisdom. However, if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your heart, then stop bragging and living in ways that deny the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above. Instead, it is from the earth, natural and demonic. Wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there is disorder and everything that is evil. What of the wisdom from above? First, it is pure, and then peaceful, and then gentle and obedient, filled with mercy and good actions, fair and genuine. Those who make peace sow the seeds of justice by their peaceful acts. James calls us to lifestyles that flow from wisdom. And interestingly enough, the biblical concept of wisdom from Genesis to Revelation is not just having a head full of facts like some nutty professor. For any of you who watched any of the Nutty Professor movies, it instead is about seeing our lives from the very same center that Nowen says prayer and the spiritual life invites us to see them from. When we engage in practices like we did Saturday together, and hopefully we'll engage in during future Lenten retreats as a church, we can see our lives and world more holistically, noticing better how they all fit together. When I see how my life is connected at the center, I see how my life is connected with yours and yours with mine. I learn then to see all of life as interconnected, with my fate and yours intertwined. The things we divide and fight over normally, like race or class or gender or sexuality or political party, let alone what basketball teams we support, no longer are worth spewing out hatred and violence over. Instead, I see you, and you see me, each bearing some unique gift we bring because of our difference. As gospel singer Hezekiah Walker puts it in one of his songs, I need you, you need me, we're all a part of God's body. Stand with me, agree with me. We're all a part of God's body. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. I pray for you. You pray for me. I love you. I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you. I need you to survive. And it's not just about you and me, but to borrow a phrase from one of my favorite theologians, Jurgen Moltmann, we are also one with the community of creation. So when we live our lives from the center, we realize we also have to care for all kinds of life on earth, seeing ourselves as connected with other animals, plants, and all of nature, so that we walk lightly on this earth, doing what we can to care for the environment in which we live. As Pope Francis wrote, a Christian who doesn't safeguard creation, who doesn't make it flourish, is a Christian who isn't concerned with God's work, that work born of God's love for us. Living from that place, where we value our connections with others, value our connections with nature, is living a life of wisdom. And if we live that way every day, we will embrace others rather than tear down. We will promote what makes life thrive for the least of our neighbors, even for other living things. I conclude with a prayer of that theologian I mentioned liking, Yergon Moltmann, which I think beautifully pictures a life lived from center. May each of us join in this prayer, asking it to be true for us and each other. When I love God, I love the beauty of bodies, the rhythms of movements, the shining of eyes, the embraces, the feelings, the sense, the sounds of all this creation. When I love you, my God, I want to embrace it all, for I love you with all my senses in the creations of your love. In all the things that encounter me, you are waiting for me. For a long time, I looked within myself and I crept into the shell of my soul, shielding myself with an armor of inapproachability. But you were outside myself, and enticed me out of the narrowness of my heart into the broad place of the love for life. So I came out of myself and found my soul in my senses and my own self in others. Amen. Amen. God bless you, and hope to see you this Sunday and later on as we continue this journey to Easter as a church and as a community. God bless.